KODI, a 96.7 FM, 1400 AM. Now it's time for the award-winning Speak Your Piece. Now, here's your host, Mac Watson.
And welcome to another edition of Speak Your Piece. My guest today in studio is Rebecca Burns. She comes in every so often from the PAL Economic Partnership, and we talk about all kinds of things. This is our continuing series called Park County Progress. Good morning. How are you?
I am so happy to be here.
I hope I can believe you. You sound a little doubtful there, but so no, from the great metropolis of PAL, give us an overview. How have things been? Tourism? Do you have any tourism numbers? I know that Yellowstone had a record-breaking May. What are you seeing? What are you experiencing in PAL as far as this tourist season?
PAL is a wonderful place to visit, as always. Yes, please come over and enjoy all of the many restaurants and attractions and activities.
Homesteader Museum, that kind of thing?
Homesteader Museum is the best, of course. You know, even locals. I was just at an outreach event in Cody, and there was this little girl. She was so cute, and she was the library was there, and she had a bookmark or something like that. I'm like, you need to take that, go to your mom, make sure you get the little engine that could, and then go to the Homesteader Museum and read it in the caboose, because my boys love to do that.
Really?
You can get in the caboose and, you know, have an experience, a memorable experience, because there is a lot of hands-on types of stuff at the Homesteader Museum. Bring your kids there.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that the train or the caboose was open, that you could do that.
It is open.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked a couple of times Park County Progress, and this is basically all things economic, business, that kind of thing. But today we want to talk about something very, very important, since we are a tourist community, customer service. So where do you want to start with customer service today?
So I think customer service is not just for the retail and restaurant industry, but it's really pervasive across the board, right? So if you are selling insurance, or you're selling a home, anything where there's a transaction involved, I think you can up your game as far as customer service goes.
What, like, do we have any data? Do we have any, studies or whatever? Like, what makes good customer service if somebody comes into town, right? Or somebody comes to PAL and they're going to visit Yellowstone, or they're going to, go somewhere else. Do we know what people want as far as customer service? Do we know what they expect?
Yeah, I've done a good amount of research on this as far as customer service and the difference between customer service and customer care, and then moving into the customer journey or customer experience. And I think we all know when we have bad customer service.
We do.
A rude sales associate, an inattentive waiter, an online order that is not filled correctly, bad customer service, right? So what would be good customer service? The inverse. A friendly sales associate, an attentive waiter, an online order that is filled correctly. So customer service is, to me, completing a transaction in a timely and polite manner. So pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, it is. But do you want... I hear what you're saying, but I think it's very subjective too, right? Because timely, if because my daughter works at a restaurant, right? So now she knows how a restaurant works. So she will be very critical if somebody doesn't bring water, or if somebody brings out something that's not hot or something like that. Timely, though, I think is very, very, very subjective, right? How do you teach that, though? How do you teach somebody to be timely? How do you teach somebody that this is the way customer service should be if we all have different expectations?
I agree with you that there's different expectations, and generally that's regionally.
Okay.
I would say,
good point.
People on the East Coast expect things extremely quickly and to be efficient.
Right.
People in the Midwest or Western are willing to take a little bit more time.
And give you a little bit more lag time, right?
Absolutely. So it's knowing your audience. And I think really that moves into the transition from customer service to customer care.
Okay. What's the difference?
So when I was doing some research and looking really what is customer care, it's honestly making people feel seen. So it's making people feel seen while you're actively listening and adjusting the transaction accordingly.
Okay.
So if customer service is basically a timely and correct transaction,
right,
while being polite, of course, customer service is really adjusting your customer service, adjusting that lens for the person that you're serving and actively listening so that you can
like fulfill the need or the want
of that person.
Right.
Yeah, so making that person feel seen.
Yeah.
That's really the difference.
Okay. Are we getting better at it, do you think, or are we getting worse at it?
Who's we?
The customer service, the service industry. Are you seeing around Powell, and you don't have to call anybody out or whatever, but are you seeing in Powell and Cody that, boy, I've just noticed in the past couple of years that things just don't, blah, 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 or, hey, it used to be this way. Now it's really better. What are you experiencing?
I think customer service and customer care and the customer journey as like an industry whole, so we'll just take a global snapshot, is like honestly has leaps and bounds light years away from where we were, or where I remember being, and I think a lot of that has to do with process and expectations and things like Zagat ratings,
right,
and
Yelp
other
ratings, that kind of thing,
other type of ratings for sure. So I think depending on where we're located, the expectation used to be high, and now it's extremely high, and that's just across the board.
But does that mean though the expectations are met, or do they, are they unattainable? Do you think?
So I think comparing apples to oranges, if you are a mom and pop shop and, I'm going to take that back. I think managers can implement anything that they want to.
Yeah. Okay.
And and
it's up to them to do so.
It's up to them to do so. I feel like sometimes this feels so hard. I really empathize with our local shop owners and restaurants and retailers and small service providers, especially if they're not tied to a franchise of some kind, and they're not getting like massive amounts of professional development, and it's really up to them to do all of that. Because really what that is when you're looking at things like this, you're no longer working, in your business, you're working on your business.
Right.
And it is really difficult for small business owners to transition from working in their business, doing the day-to-day, getting things done, to working on their business. But we have some tangible, actionable items for you.
Okay. You want to go over them now, or do you want to hold off?
When is our commercial break, Mac?
Right now. So let's hold off. I'm with Rebecca Burns. She is the Powell Economic Partnership Executive Director. Park County Progress is our focus today on Speak Your Piece. We'll have more Speak Your Piece coming up right here on KODI. Speak Your Piece continues now with my guest in studio, Powell Economic Partnership Director, Rebecca Burns. We do this every couple of months or so, Park County Progress. We talk about many, many different things. Today, it's all about customer service and providing great customer service. And Rebecca, you made a great point earlier. It's not just about restaurants. It's not just about maybe the grocery store. It's anybody really. Doesn't matter if you're at the auto parts store. Doesn't matter if you're an irrigation person or even agriculture. If you have to interact with somebody, you are providing customer service. And that's why I tell people inside this building, don't think of people listening to the radio as listeners. They're customers. They expect a certain level or brand of radio. They expect a certain kind of service. Everybody's kind of, a customer if you think about it. Even if you go to church, they are customers of a certain religion, if you will, so the pastor, the priest, the rabbi, whomever has to provide a certain service. We're all in this together kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a transaction, right? So
yeah, right.
It's either a service transaction or it's a monetary transaction, but it's a transaction nonetheless. And so what we were talking about before the break is that good customer service is really completing a transaction in a timely and polite manner.
Yeah.
And then if you were to want to elevate and really transition into customer care, that's a transition of making people feel seen actively listening, and then adjusting the transaction accordingly.
Can you give me an example of that happening to you in recent memory?
Okay, if you go to buy a car and you have a certain type of specs in mind.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of, and we're going to get into this in the customer journey, but the actual transaction happens way before you enter into brick and mortar, generally speaking. You've done a lot of research, you know what kind of cars you want, like the size,
the price you're going to pay.
the price that you're going to pay, what that truck bed, I want the 6 foot versus the whatever foot.
Right.
And you've got a list of these types of things. You've got a checklist of things that you want in this vehicle, right?
Right.
And so I think an example of good customer service in purchasing a car would be they give you exactly what you asked for, and they do it in a timely and polite manner. And it's a pleasant experience to buy the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, there's no hiccups with the transaction.
Right.
The people are nice.
They don't haggle you too much.
Yeah, they're just, they go through the act of selling you the car.
But
customer care? Okay, can I?
Right, go ahead.
Okay. So customer care would be you walk in with your list of things, right? And that person actually has a conversation with you. Talk to me about the list of things. Now, talk to me about how you envision using this vehicle. Mm-hmm. What is the bulk of the time that you're going to use this vehicle?
Right, getting to know you.
Yeah, exactly. Are you using it, are you going to buy a truck for hunting? Is this a family vehicle? So on and so forth. And be like, you know what? After listening to you and really understanding what you need, we feel like we can certainly give you the car that you wanted when you walked in the door with your checklist. We'll do that for you.
Yeah.
But we really feel like you might want to consider this other vehicle.
Right. They hear you, they evaluate what you've said, but maybe they make a suggestion. Or I did have that experience the other day. I won't say what store, but I did go into a store and I thought I knew what I wanted, and I did not. It turns out. Sure. And not that the person was pushy or had an agenda, but he listened to what I said, and then he said, maybe you should consider this. And I did. And I was like, wow, I never thought of it that way, or I never considered that. You're right. That is customer care. That is when somebody truly hears you, appreciates, and you feel seen. Maybe they offer you something different, or maybe they fulfill your expectations, but at least you have a good interaction with them and you get what you want and you leave satisfied. How many times, though, do we just, in and out, I just want this, blah, 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 and they really don't go above and beyond?
Because it's easier and it's kind of expected. And it's also, I think a lot of it is just management and training and giving people some leeway and tools
and some do's and don'ts.
Tools and to execute. So if you're wanting to go down the customer care journey, again, making people feel seen, actively listening, and adjusting the transaction accordingly, as a manager, we need to do a handful of things. Let's just face it.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of this does not fall on the salesperson. The salesperson can only do so much with what they're given, right? It's going to be the manager. And one thing is, did the manager or does the organization create the environment to allow those customer care conversations to happen?
Yes.
So have you created the playing field? Have you created the environment? As a manager, one of the big things is always seeing, am I hiring the right person for the right job? Number one. Do I need to take a hard look at our customer experience, like the whole customer journey?
Right.
And then do I need to invest in tools to do the job right?
Tools as what? Like training or some kind of stat-based report or something? Like what are the tools that we can use, do you think? Yeah,
so the tools can be a workplace overhaul. Maybe like if you're in a mechanic shop and once you've really taken a look at your employee and what they're actively doing day in and day out, do you really know what your employee is doing?
Right. And are they efficient?
Are they efficient? And do we actually need a workplace overhaul?
Right.
That is something. So changing physical environment, purchasing software or hardware needed to do the job more effectively.
Yeah.
Is your point of sale clunky?
Right.
Do you need to change your point of sale?
Right.
Do you need a software tool to have the data to be able to share with your customers? Or do you need a professional development training? One thing that I really, really love when it comes to tools and doing the job right is Will Guidara wrote this book called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you heard of it?
No. Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable
Hospitality.
I'm
going to write that down.
So Will Guidara was a restaurateur, is a restaurateur, and now he is kind of a speaker. He's a producer of the show The Bear. He does a lot of different things within the hospitality sphere, but he's gone from like actually managing and running a restaurant to really being a hospitality guru.
Yeah.
Is the best way to describe him. But he owned one of the best restaurants in the world. It was actually voted best restaurant in the world.
In the world?
In the world. Best restaurant in the world. It took years for him to get to where he was going. And he did it with a hot dog.
One hot dog?
That's right.
Okay. There's got to be more to this story than just he did it with a hot dog. It took one hot dog for him to like build a plan, that kind of thing?
So it was spawned with the hot dog. Essentially, his restaurant was in Manhattan, New York City, and it was, swanky as hell. And the food was, the process that it took to get stuff on the menu, it was a tasting menu. So you had like many, many courses,
right.
And it would be like, this duck that was, processed, like just, they did stuff to it for months before it ever got on your plate. Like, so
right.
It was so thought through, the whole thing. And he found himself, needing to wait a table. He was a little short staffed. So he found himself, and he overheard, again, customer care, he overheard a conversation. It was some international tourists, and they were like, oh, this trip has been so amazing, and we've gone to all these amazing restaurants in New York, and how great is this? And then someone said, you know what we didn't do? We never found time to find a New York City hot dog. We never ate a New York City hot dog. So he overheard this. He ran out. He got the hot dog. He took it back to the chef.
Oh, so he ran outside of his restaurant, went like to a street vendor.
A street hot dog vendor.
Got a hot dog and brought it back.
Yes. And then he had to convince his, very posh chef to plate this hot dog.
No.
So there was like swooshes of ketchup and mustard and, sauerkraut and the whole thing, And anyway, so he presented this hot dog to this table, and the way he says it was he has served thousands of meals over his life as a restaurant owner and being in the restaurant industry, and no dish ever got the elated, just
rave
emotional,
review.
Outcry of this table
getting a hot dog
because they were heard.
Yeah.
They were seen.
And
they were overheard in this particular moment because it wasn't even a conversation he was in.
Right.
But that spawned a series of events that then led to him getting the best restaurant in the world.
If I didn't know you for as long as I have, I would have thought you had told me a Monty Python skit. Because it doesn't sound real. Like, who in the hell goes outside of their own business to accommodate you as a customer? But you make a great point. If that's what it takes.
Someone who wrote the book called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality.
But come on, this is so Macy's on what is it? The Christmas movie where they tell
Miracle
people
on 34th
thank
Street?
you, where they're like, the Santas, you need to go to this store,
yes.
and blah, blah, blah. And guess what? The Macy's, come on, remember what happened in the movie?
Right. It's all right there.
Yep, they got the customers.
Yeah. The other thing, just to put a point on that, there is nothing better in customer service when somebody says, I hear your frustration. I'll see what I can do. They're going to take the time to try to fix the problem, maybe get an associate, make a call, whatever. There is nothing like that. Like I get a dopamine high if I'm really frustrated and somebody says, I hear you're frustrated. That is frustrating. Like they're acknowledging you, and then they say, let me see what I can do. Because 9 times out of 10, they will get something done. It may not be perfect, but they will get something done. What drives me nuts is when they pawn you off onto somebody else. Oh, let me transfer you. or I can't take care of that. No, you could take care of that. You choose not to. So again, it's all in the phrasing. It's all in the way you put it as well.
I mean, that's a warm handoff. So like, have you ever done customer service on basically over the phone? Has that been a job? Have you been a DJ all of your life?
I get calls in the office.
You get calls. So I've worked customer service for a big bank.
Yeah.
And I did that.
On the phone all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a customer service representative for a large bank, a large credit card company.
Okay.
Who was purchased by ended up being purchased by Bank of America. And I saw balance transfers. That was like the customer service. And, you can do two types of transfers. A warm transfer, which means like you stay on the line, you usher in a conversation with the customer still on the line, and then you transfer them to someone else that could.
I've had that happen.
Yeah. Or the hard transfer, right? And so that's an example of management practice. So management gave employees the possibility to do a warm transfer versus a hard transfer, but that's actually a technical thing that needs to happen.
Right.
In the phone database,
What I don't understand is why can't you just take care of it? Why do I need to be transferred? Why do I need the warm handoff or the nice send off or whatever? Why do I need to be transferred? Why can't, like somebody says, well, I can't see that on my screen. Why not? Why not? I'm calling you to solve my problem.
Sure. Again, that would be like a manager customer experience conversation. So let's continue down this journey because you're
Am I asking too many questions?
No, I'm prepared. I am ready. Ready for these questions, Mac.
All right. My guest today in studio, Rebecca Burns, PAL Economic Partnership. We're talking about customer service, part of our series, Park County Progress. We'll have more Speak Your Piece coming up on KODI. This is Speak Your Piece on KODI with my guest in studio, Rebecca Burns, the PAL Economic Partnership. We're talking about customer service, customer care, and like the frontline experience. Now, we all know, we've all had bad customer service experiences, but what makes good customer service experiences, that's what we're kind of sort of talking about. So we left off with me interrupting you about all the stuff of all the stuff that you have prepared in front of you, because I could just go on and on about good customer service and bad customer service, because again, to me, it's the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. And I think for the most part, we do that here in Park County because we are a small town. You can't flip somebody off and then see him at church on Sunday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, rural nature makes you accountable. That's
exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're definitely accountable.
Right. We have to be held accountable. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So customer service, we talked about, being a transaction, customer care, also being a transaction, but, catering it to a particular person. And then you have like the customer experience. Mm-hmm. So the customer experience is really something that employees can inform, but managers have complete control of this customer experience.
Because they set the tone, right? They dictate the way you are to interact with your customers, right?
Not only that, but they're also choosing, so they're hiring the people. Mm-hmm. They are looking at the steps that it takes. They're the ones who create the steps that it takes to get the transaction to completion, right? And they're the ones who are investing in the tools or not investing in the tools to do the job. So, okay, let's start first. Managers, this is kind of a no-brainer, but honestly, let's take a look at it again. You know what I mean? Okay, hiring the right people to do a job. As a manager, do you actually know the steps that are needed to take to get any particular job done under your charge, right?
Okay.
So how many steps does it take? What do those steps actually look like?
Yeah.
That's really huge. Just understanding what do the day-to-day actions look like for the employees who you're managing. So that's number one. Personality types. Of course, you're looking at hiring people who are well-suited for a job. And if you take a look at the actions, maybe it's a different personality type than you thought you needed, right? Because I think when we're talking about customer service or customer care, we're always like, let's get extroverts who are super sanguine and just can talk to everybody,
Yeah.
Well, if someone's too chatty and doesn't get the transaction done efficiently,
you're losing money.
You're losing money, but you're also could be losing customers, right?
Exactly.
And so, it's not just about being an extrovert. I think, there's a lot of different personality types that can fit the work that is needed to be done And then another point as far as hiring people, what types of people do you need to fit a well-rounded team?
So what different personalities make up a whole team?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you are in a project management if you do project management,
right,
you need a solid team. And the best assessment that I love is the 6 Working Geniuses from Patrick Lencioni. And essentially, it's a $25, 15-minute assessment, and it really dives into how you work. It has, like, to do a project, it starts with questioning, it ends with, like, helping, right?
And it takes 15 minutes?
The assessment takes 15 minutes to complete. And I actually have everybody at PEP do this particular assessment because, yes, we have them do personality tests too. But personality tests only tell a manager so much. It doesn't tell them how this person's going to actually work and then what gaps you have in a team.
But isn't that what an interview is for? Why would I need this assessment? Shouldn't I interview somebody to get a feel of how they work or ask questions about how they go about doing a project? Again, that one-on-one interview process, isn't that really valuable?
I think it's valuable. It's a start.
It's a start. I got you.
Yeah, you can get a general idea. I mean, how long does an interview last? Maybe an hour?
Last probably, yeah.
Maybe an hour? Do you really understand who that person
or
is?
Or if you're in Cody and it's tourist season, you're a warm body, you're hired. Get on the ice cream, that kind of thing.
Sure. So, no, I mean, an interview is a great place to start, but it certainly doesn't tell you what you need to know.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times people don't even know things about themselves until they take the assessment, or they're like, oh, yep, I knew that about myself, but I didn't have the language to explain it. That tracks.
Yes.
And if your team is talking in the same language, that's really important, right? And so if you are an ice cream shop, maybe you don't need project management assessment. Maybe you're going to adapt something else or adopt something else. But yeah, you should have a common language that everybody is talking, so that people understand there are differences. The differences are okay, but it actually makes the whole transaction work.
So let's talk a little bit about interviews, because I've been on a number of them. Fired 8 times. I've been on, I've had a number of different jobs. The best piece of advice I ever got was from a manager who told me, do not hire a guy who says he can do anything. If you're in an interview and you say, hey, do you have skills in Adobe? Oh yeah, I can do that. Do you have skills in, building websites? Oh yeah. If they say they can do everything, they're probably lying about 50%. You want the guy that says, I've never done that, but I can learn. You don't want somebody that just says, "Oh yeah, I could do," and try to figure it out later, because that's setting them up for failure. So I thought that was pretty insightful. That you want somebody to be honest. You don't want somebody who's just going to, agree with everything or think they can do anything. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
So that sounds like an interview based on skill sets alone, and I would caution that that's not an awesome interview.
In what sense? That you don't know the personality? You just know the skill set?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to work with that person. You're going to need to like them.
So what questions can you ask?
I think a lot of interviews, I wasn't prepared for this, but I'm happy to go down this track with you. Okay?
Oh, I know. I can throw anything at you and you know about it. It's amazing.
I can do everything.
Right. I'd never hire you.
But I would never say that in an interview.
Exactly.
Okay, so you need to like that person that you're with, right? And your team needs to like the person that you're with. So you are, you're asking questions about personality. You're asking questions about, you lend into your values. So for PEP, it's community leadership, collaboration, and innovation. And so I'm going to cater some questions to those types of things because that's what the board has said are their values, right? So I'm not going to hire someone who's like, not at all collaborative, innovative, or has no desire to be a community leader, right? So you talk about your culture, and you're bringing that culture, but you're checking people for like, hey, are they a good fit for this culture, right? Are they a good personality fit? Do they have a work style that would fit what we need them to do? And then honestly, I think skills are last because unless you have a job that is extremely specific
Well, like accountants, they need to know accounting law, right? I mean,
yes.
Or tax law.
A mechanic, those types of things. But you probably wouldn't even be interviewing them unless they had the skills.
Oh, good point.
So
good point.
You've already checked that. You've already checked to see that. And then after that, you might look into their references. Holy moly, please, managers, call references.
Why?
Call references.
Why?
Why don't y'all do this? Why?
Because you can get a feel for that the person by what the other person says, or like, how do I know this person isn't just giving a glowing review when actually they're not that great? What are you getting? How
many references have you checked?
Me personally?
Yeah.
6.
Okay, well, you get an idea.
So you get an idea.
Come
okay.
On, know. I mean, the people they can't really say anything bad about the person. If they have a short answer about the person that you're asking about, and they don't want to elaborate, even though you're giving them room to elaborate, they don't want to hire that person.
There you go. That was kind of my point, is that you can hear a lot between the words. It's not necessarily the words. It's the tone and other way. You got to listen for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're super concerned about skills, you need to be doing references. Right. That employer, you can ask questions. And by the way, this doesn't need to be a mystery. Interview questions, reference questions, they're all online. Go to Indeed.
Right.
Go to Indeed and be like, best interview questions for accountants, best interview questions for, mechanics, best interview questions for customer service representatives.
It's all online.
It's on there.
All right, my guest today on Speak Your Piece is Rebecca Burns. I would give her a great recommendation if somebody were to call me for a reference. The first words out of my mouth would be like, oh, her, yeah. Okay. PAL Economic Partnership. We're going to have more Speak Your Piece coming up on KODI.